They took our home. Now we'll take their stars. HFY Story Elias Ward was guiding his freight ship down toward Dock Ring 7, thinking only about fuel costs and how long it would take to unload. The colony spread beneath him like a living map. White cities hugged green land. Rivers cut clean silver lines through forests. From orbit, Havenfall looked peaceful, almost untouched. Then the stars moved. At first, Elias thought it was a sensor error. Points of light shifted in ways stars never should. His console flickered. Long-range scanners screamed to life, flooding the cockpit with red alerts. Before he could react, space tore open. Dark shapes slid out of nothingness, massive and silent. Hundreds of ships appeared at once, forming precise patterns above the planet. They were smooth, angular, and wrong in a way Elias could feel in his chest. No running lights, no hails, no hesitation. Orbital defense stations fired within seconds. Bright lines of energy cut upward from Havenfall's surface, striking the first wave of enemy ships. The shots vanished against shimmering fields that wrapped the invaders like invisible skin. The alien fleet did not answer immediately. Then they did. Beams fell from the sky like falling suns. One defense station vanished in a flash so bright it burned Elias's eyes even through the cockpit filters. Another broke apart piece by piece, peeled open by invisible force. The rest died just as fast. The city screamed. Elias heard it through open emergency channels. Panicked voices, shouting, orders that made no sense anymore. Air traffic control vanished mid-sentence. Civilian ships tried to flee, only to be swatted aside by weapons that barely seemed to notice them. His ship shook violently as a shockwave rolled through the upper atmosphere. Alarms howled, power dipped. Elias didn't think. He reacted. He cut thrust and dumped the ship straight down, aiming for the industrial sector where old mining rigs and storage towers crowded the ground. Debris filled the sky. Burning wrecks fell like rain. A shadow passed over him. One of the alien ships slid overhead, close enough that Elias could see its surface ripple like dark liquid. A single beam lanced downward, carving a glowing scar across the city. Buildings folded in on themselves. The ground split open. Elias slammed his ship into emergency descent. The impact was violent. Metal screamed. Systems died. The cockpit filled with smoke as the freight ship crashed sideways into a collapsed cargo bay. Containers fell on top of him, burying the ship under steel and concrete. The world went silent. For a long moment, Elias thought he was dead. Then pain arrived. He gasped, choking on smoke, fingers shaking as he checked himself, bruised ribs, blood on his forehead. But alive. His ship was crushed, pinned under rubble. Power was gone. Only a small emergency battery kept the cockpit lights dimly glowing. Outside, the end of the world continued. Through a cracked viewport, Elias saw fire climb into the sky. The city burned in waves. Explosions rippled across the horizon as the alien fleet moved methodically, striking infrastructure, energy plants, spaceports, and communication hubs. They weren't attacking blindly. They were erasing. Hours passed. Or minutes. Elias couldn't tell. At some point, the screams on the open channels faded. Either the transmitters died or the people did. Elias sat alone in the dark, listening to distant thunder as Havenfall was taken apart piece by piece. When the alien fleet finally stopped firing, the silence felt heavier than the destruction. A signal cut through the quiet. Every surviving receiver on the planet activated at once. Elias's dead console flickered back to life, overridden by a foreign system. Symbols crawled across the screen, then shifted into broken but readable human language. This expansion ends now. The voice that spoke was calm, flat, not angry, not proud. You were observed, measured. Your growth exceeded acceptable limits. Images followed. Human colonies mapped across nearby systems. Projected lines showed future expansion paths, all crossed out in red. Havenfall is removed as correction. The camera view pulled back, showing the planet from orbit. Fires dotted the surface. Clouds boiled where oceans had been struck. Earth is spared, for now. Elias felt cold spread through him. Remain contained, or be erased. The transmission ended. Moments later, the alien ships folded space again and vanished, as if they had never been there. They left nothing behind but a dying world. Elias didn't move for a long time. Eventually, smoke thinned. Fires burned lower. The ground stopped shaking. He forced open the cockpit hatch with a crowbar from an emergency kit. Outside, the cargo bay was crushed flat. Bodies lay twisted among broken machines. The air tasted like ash and melted metal. Havenfall was gone. Elias walked through the ruins in a daze. He found no rescue teams, no signals, no working comms, only silence and heat. Near the old mining sector, something hummed. It was faint, almost lost beneath the crackle of burning debris. A steady pulse, unnatural and steady. Elias followed the sound into a collapsed tunnel. Beneath layers of rock and broken equipment, a smooth black object lay half-buried. It was the size of a small vehicle, unmarked, untouched by fire. Alien. As Elias approached, the surface lit with thin blue lines. The hum grew louder. His skin prickled. The object reacted to him. A panel opened without sound, revealing a glowing core suspended in the air, spinning slowly. Symbols flowed across it like living code. Elias took a step back. The core pulsed once. Then his ship's emergency beacon activated on its own. The alien device linked itself to the dead systems around it, drawing power from nowhere. Data flooded into Elias's wrist display, translating faster than he could read. Star charts, fleet paths, resource maps, and something else. Human projections. It showed where humanity would go, what it would become. Not guesses, but calculated outcomes. Paths of expansion that ended with humans reaching far beyond their current borders. Every one of those futures was marked as unacceptable. Elias understood then. They didn't destroy Havenfall out of fear of what humans were. They destroyed it because of what humans would be. The core locked itself into his ship's remaining systems, fusing metal and alien matter together. Elias tried to pull away, but the connection was already complete. A final message appeared. Observer node active. Somewhere far beyond Havenfall's broken sky. Something noticed. Elias stood alone in the ruins of a dead world, holding the first piece of the enemy ever left behind. And for the first time since the sky burned, the silence felt like it was watching him back. They came slowly, carefully, afraid of what they might still find in orbit. What they found instead was silence. No defense platforms, no traffic beacons, no answers to repeated hails, only drifting wreckage and a planet scarred black and red. Elias Ward was taken into custody the moment they found him. Rescue teams pulled him from the ruins near the mining sector, weak and half-starved, still clutching his damaged wrist display. Medics rushed him onto a transport, asking questions he could barely hear. He kept repeating the same words again and again. "They're watching." At the staging station above Havenfall, Elias was separated from the other survivors. No one told him why. His clothes were taken. His device was confiscated. Armed guards escorted him through clean white corridors into a room with no windows and no visible cameras. The door sealed behind him. Hours passed, or maybe days. When someone finally entered, it was not a soldier. She was short, with tired eyes and dark hair tied back without care. She carried a data tablet and a cup of water, which she placed gently on the table in front of him. "My name is Mara Vance," she said. "I study propulsion and alien systems. You found something on Havenfall." Elias stared at her. His throat was dry. "It found me." Mara did not smile. She tapped her tablet, and the room's far wall came alive with glowing images, alien symbols, star maps, fleet movements. Elias's breath caught. "You weren't supposed to survive," Mara said quietly. "None of you were." She explained what had happened after the attack, how emergency governments formed overnight, how outer colonies were ordered abandoned, how expansion fleets were recalled, stripped, and grounded. Fear ruled everything. The alien message had spread across human space within hours. Some worlds panicked. Others tried to hide. A few talked about surrendering before anything worse happened. "And the object?" Elias asked. Mara hesitated. "It's not just a device. It's an observer system, a thinking one. It records, predicts, judges." She showed him a projection of human expansion models, the same ones Elias had seen buried under Havenfall's ruins. "They didn't attack because we are strong," she said. "They attacked because we grow." The door opened again. This time a group of officials entered. Military. Political. Corporate. Their faces were hard, controlled. Elias felt suddenly very small. One of them spoke. "You are being held under emergency authority. What you experienced is now classified." Elias laughed once, sharp and broken. "You can't classify the sky burning." The official ignored him. "We want to know what the device does." "It watches," Elias said, "and it learns." For weeks, Elias was questioned. Again and again. Always the same questions, asked in different ways. What did the alien say? What did he see? Did the device speak again? It didn't, but it listened. Mara visited him often, sometimes with questions, sometimes with quiet updates. She told him about protests on Earth, about colonies demanding protection, about secret meetings held far from public eyes. One day she arrived pale and shaken.
"They lost another system," she said. Elias sat up.
Who did?" "Them," Mara replied. "The ones who destroyed Havenfall." She brought up a deep space feed. A distant star burned strangely, surrounded by debris too large to be natural. An alien world. Destroyed. "Internal conflict," Mara said. "At least, that's what they want others to believe." More data followed. Disrupted supply routes, broken communications, entire regions of alien space going dark. "They're not invincible," Elias said slowly. "No," Mara agreed. "They're afraid. That was when everything changed. A signal appeared on the edge of known space, weak, broken, almost missed. It didn't match any known alien or human pattern, but the observer device reacted. For the first time since Havenfall, it activated on its own. Mara and Elias watched as symbols shifted, reformed, and translated themselves without human input. The message was short. "They are lying to you." The room fell silent. The signal came again, clearer this time. Images followed. Not maps or projections, but memories. Cities built into cavern walls. Beings unlike humans, thin and pale, moving under heavy skies. "They took our stars first," the message said. "You are next." Elias felt something stir inside him that had nothing to do with fear. "Where is it coming from?" he asked. Mara zoomed the map out. Far beyond human borders, deep inside enemy territory. "Someone is reaching through their space," she said, "and risking everything to do it." The officials argued for hours. Elias heard shouting through the sealed walls. Words like containment, risk, retaliation. In the end, the decision was made quietly. A ship would be sent, not a fleet, not a declaration, just a single vessel, stripped of markings, crewed by people who already understood what losing everything felt like. Elias was released into restricted freedom. Mara joined the mission under special authority. Others followed. Pilots, engineers, soldiers who had seen colonies burn. No one spoke of revenge, but everyone felt it. The ship slipped out of human space without announcement, using modified drives that bent rules humans had only just learned to break. As they crossed the boundary into enemy territory, sensors lit up with silent watchers. Distant probes tracked them but did not fire. "Why aren't they stopping us?" Elias asked. Mara's voice was low. "Because they don't believe we would dare." The signal source grew stronger. And then the ship received another message, this one unmistakable. "Turn back," it said. "If they see you, they will erase you." Elias looked at the dark stars ahead. "They already tried," he replied. The ship kept moving. Far away, something ancient and powerful adjusted its attention. Humanity had not stayed contained, and the quiet after the end was finally breaking. Elias Ward stood near the forward viewport, watching unfamiliar stars slide past. They burned a colder white than human stars, sharp and distant, like they did not welcome being seen. The ship's system stayed quiet, running on low output, hiding its heat and signal as much as possible. Inside, no one spoke unless they had to. The crew was small. Each person had been chosen because they could keep secrets and because they had already lost something important. Pilots who had watched colonies burn, engineers who had buried friends, soldiers who no longer believed safety was guaranteed by distance. Mara Vance worked near the core of the ship, surrounded by floating data screens. The alien observer system was connected to their navigation array now, though tightly limited. No one trusted it fully, but no one denied its value. Every time the ship changed course, the device adjusted the path slightly, smoothing the movement, reducing exposure. It knew this space better than any map. "They're watching us," one of the sensor officers said quietly. "They've been watching us since Havenfall," Elias replied. A ripple moved across the sensor field. Not a ship, not a weapon. Something like a pulse, spreading through space itself. Mara looked up. "That's not a scan," she said. "That's a warning net." The signal source was close now, close in a way that made everyone tense. They found it where no one expected. The star ahead was broken. It burned unevenly, its light flickering as if something was choking it from the inside. Massive debris fields circled it, remnants of stations, ships, and cities torn apart and left drifting. An entire system had died here. This was a core world, Mara said softly, reading the data. One of theirs. Elias felt a grim sense of balance. They can bleed. As the ship moved deeper, they detected life, weak, scattered, hidden among wreckage and hollowed asteroids. The signal that had called to them came again, clearer now. "Human vessel," it said. "You crossed lines you do not understand." Elias stepped forward. "We understand loss." There was a pause. Then coordinates appeared. They followed. The meeting place was a massive ring structure, broken in half, floating above the shattered world. Inside its shadow, dozens of small ships waited, their designs crude compared to the enemy fleet, but modified with care and desperation. The beings who greeted them were not the invaders. They were smaller. Fragile-looking. Their skin was pale and marked with lines that glowed faintly when they moved. Their eyes reflected light strangely, as if adapted to underground worlds. "We studied you," their leader said through a translation system, "for many cycles." Mara frowned. "Why?" "Because you change," the being replied. "Faster than any species we catalogued." They explained who they were. A people conquered long ago. Forced to serve. Used as engineers, analysts, and planners. They had helped design the systems that tracked emerging civilizations, including humanity. "You saw us coming," Elias said. "Yes," the being answered, "and we feared what would happen when they noticed you fully. The invaders did not destroy worlds for resources alone. They destroyed futures that threatened their control. Species that expanded too quickly were erased early, before resistance could form. But you were different," the being continued. "You adapt through failure. You turn loss into progress." Mara's hands tightened at her sides. "So Havenfall was a test." The being did not deny it. The rebellion had started quietly, sabotaged supply lines, false data, small failures that spread into larger ones. Eventually, entire fleets collapsed due to bad assumptions. "Its fear would stop you," the being said, "but fear sharpens you." The enemy response was coming. Sensors showed movement at the edges of the system, warships regrouping, preparing to crush the rebellion and erase the evidence. "You cannot win a direct fight," the being warned. "Not yet." Elias looked at the broken star. "Then we don't fight directly?" Plans formed quickly. Human minds worked alongside alien rebels, finding gaps, patterns, weaknesses that had been hidden by arrogance. Centralized control systems, over-reliance on predictive models that assumed enemies would behave rationally. "They don't expect improvisation," Mara said. "They expect fear." The human ship carried something small but dangerous, a modified jump node seeded with unstable math, designed to overload navigation networks if triggered inside the enemy's own infrastructure. A risk, a huge one. If it failed, their ship would never escape. Elias volunteered to deliver it. The rebel leader watched him carefully. "Why?" Because they already took my home, Elias said. They don't get to take my future too. The enemy fleet arrived sooner than expected. Massive shapes tore into the system, weapons charging, formations locking into place. The rebels scattered, drawing attention away from the human ship. Elias piloted manually, ignoring automated suggestions, pushing the ship through debris fields too dense for large vessels to follow. Energy beams sliced through space behind them, tearing asteroids apart. The ship shook, alarmed screaming, but it kept moving. They reached the jump gate hub. It was enormous, ancient, the backbone of enemy expansion. Dozens of gates linked thousands of systems together. Mara armed the device. Once this goes live, she said, their entire network will blind itself trying to correct the error. Elias smiled grimly. Let them panic. Enemy ships closed in. The space around them glowed with charging weapons. Now, Mara said. Elias released the device. Space twisted. The jump gate flared with impossible light. Systems screamed across enemy space as navigation paths collapsed into confusion. Ships dropped out of jumps in empty space. Fleets lost contact with command. The enemy fired. The human ship vanished. It reappeared far from the broken star, engines burning hot, systems damaged but alive. Behind them, the enemy empire stumbled. For the first time in generations, their control slipped. Elias exhaled slowly, hands shaking. Mara looked at the data streaming in. Rebel worlds rising, slave systems breaking free. They'll come for us, she said. Yes, Elias replied. But now they know something. What's that? That we don't kneel. Far away, deep within enemy territory, something ancient recalculated its models. Humanity was no longer a future problem. It was a present one. Across enemy space, ships drifted without orders. Fleets that once moved like a single mind now hesitated, waiting for commands that never came. Supply lines twisted into useless loops. Gates refused to open or opened into empty darkness. The invaders had built their power on control, and control was cracking. Elias Ward watched the data flow in silence as the human ship hid near the edge of a cold nebula. The engines were damaged, patched together with quick repairs and stubborn hope, but they still worked. Life support held. Weapons were low. Everyone aboard was tired in a way sleep could not fix. Mara Van stood beside him, eyes locked on the streams of information pouring in from rebel contacts. Each message carried the same tone. Oh. Shock. Confusion. Opportunity. They are fighting each other, she said quietly. Command units blaming local fleets blaming corrupted data. Elias nodded. That won't last. No, Mara agreed. But it's enough. Human space had not stayed silent. When the first proof arrived that the enemy could be hurt, everything changed. Hidden shipyards activated. Old military plans were pulled from sealed vaults. Civilian engineers volunteered without being asked. Humanity did not announce war. It prepared. Small strike groups formed along the border. Not fleets meant to conquer, but teams meant to cut, disrupt, and vanish. Each carried one simple goal. Take something vital. Leave the rest burning with questions. Elias was given command of one such group. He did not ask for it. He did not refuse. The target was a star system that fed energy to dozens of enemy worlds. Massive collectors wrapped the star like a cage, drawing power and sending it outward through tight beam relays. Taking it would not destroy the enemy, but it would starve them. The human ships arrived without warning, riding distorted jump paths the enemy still could not predict. They emerged close, dangerously close, inside the defense grid. Enemy fire lit the void instantly. Elias pushed his ship forward, ignoring the danger, threading through overlapping beams that should have torn them apart. Opening pilots flew in ways training manuals never allowed, trusting instinct over math. The enemy defenses hesitated. They had never seen this. Boarding teams launched, small and fast, cutting into the collectors at key points. Instead of destroying them, the humans rewired them, redirected flow, locked out enemy access. Within minutes, the star system changed hands. Elias watched the energy readings stabilize under human control. "Broadcast," he said. A message went out across nearby space. "The system is no longer yours," it said. "No one here will be harmed. No one will be taken." There was no threat in the words. That made them more dangerous. Reactions came fast. Some enemy ships attacked in rage, charging blindly. They were destroyed by defenses now under human command. Others pulled back, watching. Across the next cycle, similar strikes followed. Humans took shipyards, relay hubs, and gate controls. Always the same pattern. Precise. Limited. Controlled. They repaired what they captured. They fed the populations who had been starved. They spoke openly to enslaved species, offering protection instead of chains. Rebel worlds rose faster than anyone expected. The enemy responded at last with full force. From deep space, a massive fleet began to move. Older, heavier, built not for policing but for ending wars. And with it came something new. Mara detected it first. "This isn't a ship," she said, voice tight. "It's a system weapon." The data showed a structure forming around a dead star, ancient machinery awakening, powered by energies that bent physical law. Its purpose was simple: erase, not destroy planets, remove them from history. No debris. No memory, just absence. "They built this for us," Elias said. "For anyone like us," Mara replied. Human command argued. Some wanted to retreat. Others wanted to strike the weapon directly, no matter the cost. Its spell. Elias made a different call. He sent a message to every allied system. "Hold your ground," it said. "Protect the people. Leave the weapon to us." His task group moved fast, diving deep into hostile space, closer to the enemy core than any human ship had ever gone. Enemy patrols chased them, but confusion still reigned. The jump network remained unstable. They reached the edge of the weapon's range as it charged. Space around it warped, stars stretching into long, thin lines. Mara worked without pause, hands moving across interfaces, rewriting alien code with human logic layered on top. Sweat ran down her face. "I can't shut it down," she said, "but I can make it choose." Elias frowned. "Choose what?" "Targets," she replied. "It needs coordinates. I can give it something else." Enemy ships closed in. Weapons fire battered the human hull. Systems failed one by one. "Now would be good," Elias said. Mara finished the final sequence. The weapon fired. Space screamed. But the beam did not strike rebel worlds. It did not reach human space. It folded inward. The weapon erased its own command hub. The ancient structure collapsed in silence, consuming itself. leaving nothing behind but empty space where a star once should have been. Enemy ships froze. For a long moment, no one moved. Then the human ships jumped away, engines flaring, barely escaping as the region destabilized. The cost was heavy. 2 human ships were lost during the retreat. Boarding teams stranded. Friends gone without time for goodbyes. Elias watched the casualty reports in silence. They had taken a star, but stars were expensive. Mara stood beside him, exhausted. "They will hunt us now," she said. "Yes," Elias replied, "but they will be careful." "Why?" "Because now they know we can break their gods." Far across enemy territory, command structures collapsed into chaos. Leaders who ruled through fear found their weapons gone and their lies exposed. Humanity did not claim victory. It kept moving. And in the darkness between stars, the invaders finally understood something they had never planned for. The species they tried to contain was no longer reacting. It was advancing. Enemy fleets stopped charging blindly. They moved with care now, spreading out, watching every shadow. Traps replaced brute force. Systems that had welcomed humans days before suddenly went silent, stripped bare before retreat. Human losses increased. Elias Ward felt each one like a weight on his chest. He stood on the command deck of a damaged cruiser, staring at a map filled with blinking markers. Each light was a ship. Each dimming light meant someone was gone. "They're learning," one of the officers said quietly. "Yes," Elias replied, "but so are we." Human strategy changed again. No more wide strikes, no more bold captures. Instead, they held narrow lines, protecting worlds that had joined them. They turned systems into shields, using terrain, debris fields, and unstable jump paths to slow enemy advances. It worked, but it cost lives. On the world of Corrales, enemy forces broke through before defenses could stabilize. Civilian evacuation ships were hunted in orbit. Human escorts fought until their weapons burned out, then rammed enemy hulls to buy seconds more. Mara Vance was there. She had stayed behind to help reinforce the system's damaged gate controls, refusing to leave while civilians were still on the ground. Elias watched the feed from afar, helpless. "Mara, pull back," he said into the channel. "We're losing orbit." "I know," she replied, voice strained. "I need 2 more minutes." Explosions lit the sky behind her image. The ground shook. Systems around her failed one by one. "You don't have 2 minutes," Elias said. "I'm almost done." The connection cut. Elias felt the world narrow to a single point. Enemy ships descended through the atmosphere. The evacuation fleet jumped out, with only half its ships intact. The gate collapsed moments later, overloaded beyond recovery. Corrales went dark. Mara did not return. No body, no signal, just absence. For the first time since Havenfall, Elias locked himself alone in his quarters. He did not speak. He did not sleep. He stared at the wall and listened to the quiet hum of a ship that kept moving without asking how he felt. Command offered to replace him. He refused. "They don't stop because we're tired," he said. "Neither do I." The next phase of the war was brutal and close. Human forces held choke points where jump paths overlapped, turning space itself into a weapon. Small groups fought delaying actions, knowing they would not survive, but trusting that someone else would. Enemy prisoners were taken for the first time. Elias attended the interrogations, not to threaten, but to listen. The captives were calm. cold, certain, until they were asked about humans. "You are a flaw," one of them said through a translator. "Your behavior does not match projections." Good! The interrogations revealed something important. The enemy did not fear human strength. They feared human refusal to stop. Other species broke when worlds fell. Humans adapted. They lost leaders and replaced them, lost technology and rebuilt it differently, lost worlds and learned from the ashes. "You do not retreat correctly," one captive said. "You retreat forward." Elias carried those words with him. Weeks passed, then months. The war ground on. Human space was no longer untouched. Border worlds burned. Shipyards were destroyed. Entire populations relocated deeper into defended zones. But humanity did not collapse. It bent. Then something impossible happened. A signal appeared. Not a general broadcast. Not a coded burst. A direct transmission. It was weak, fragmented. "Mara," he whispered. The room went silent. The message played automatically. Static. Broken images. Then her voice, thin but steady. "If you're seeing this, I'm alive. Barely." Elias felt his breath shake. Mara appeared on the screen, bruised, exhausted, standing in a dim chamber of alien design. "They captured me during the fall of Keralis," she said. "I was moved. A lot. They think I'm useful." She looked straight into the camera. "I'm inside their core territory." The message skipped. "They're losing control," she continued. "Not just of space, of belief. Too many worlds know the truth now." Images flashed. Massive structures. Alien councils arguing. Systems in revolt. "They built everything around prediction," Mara said. "They can't handle chaos. They can't handle us." Her voice dropped. "They're preparing something final. A purge. Not aimed at worlds." Elias leaned forward. "At ideas," she said. "They plan to erase records, cultures, histories, make rebellion impossible by making memory impossible." The message ended abruptly. Silence filled the command deck. Elias straightened slowly. "Find her," he said. Officers exchanged looks. "That's deep inside enemy space." "Yes," Elias replied. "So is the problem." Human command hesitated. Resources were thin. Fleets were stretched. A rescue attempt could cost everything. Elias did not argue. He planned. A small task force formed, built from ships no one would miss. Crews volunteered, knowing they would likely not return. They moved fast, slipping through collapsing jump paths, riding the edges of chaos the enemy could not predict. Enemy resistance increased as they approached the core. Patrols were tighter, traps more refined. They lost a ship before even reaching the inner systems. No one turned back. They found the facility hidden inside a hollowed moon, shielded from scans by layers of warped space. Elias led the insertion himself. Boarding teams cut through the hull under fire. Corridors filled with smoke and broken gravity. Human soldiers fought room by room, pushing forward against defenders who had never expected anyone to come for prisoners. Elias reached the control chamber as alarms screamed around him. Mara was there. She looked up as the doors blew open. For a moment, neither of them moved, and she smiled, weak but real. "You took your time," she said. Elias laughed once, sharp and full of relief. Traffic was bad. They did not celebrate. The facility was already collapsing. Data cores burned. Enemy forces converged. Mara grabbed Elias's arm. "We have to go." I triggered a cascade. "This place won't exist soon." They ran. The escape was chaos. Ships launching under fire. Hulls tearing. Jump drives screaming as they were pushed beyond limits. 2 more ships were lost covering the retreat, but Elias and Mara escaped. As the task force jumped away, the hollowed moon imploded, taking with it one of the enemy's most important memory centers. Elias watched the data fade from the screen. Mara leaned back, exhausted. "They're afraid now," she said. "Yes," Elias replied, "and afraid enemies make mistakes." The war was not over. But for the first time, the enemy had lost something they could never rebuild: confidence. And in the long dark between stars, that loss would matter more than any weapon. Enemy space grew quiet in a way it never had before. Patrols slowed. Communications became careful, measured, full of pauses. Worlds that once answered instantly now delayed, waiting to see who else would speak first. Fear had replaced certainty. Elias Ward stood on the bridge of the command ship, watching a map that no longer felt hostile. It felt tired. Lines of control were broken. Regions flickered between loyalty and rebellion. Entire systems had stopped responding to enemy command entirely. "They're holding back," one officer said, "waiting for something." "Yes," Elias replied, "for us to make the first mistake." Mara Vance stood beside him, thinner than before, but steady. Her time in captivity had changed her. She spoke less, but when she did, people listened. "They can't win this the way they planned," she said. "So they're changing the rules." The intelligence reports confirmed it. The enemy leadership had withdrawn to their capital system, pulling resources inward. They were fortifying not just with fleets, but with information control. Data was being erased, records wiped, histories rewritten. "They want to survive as an idea," Mara said. "Even if the empire falls." Human command faced a choice: end the war with slow pressure, risking decades of fighting, or strike once, hard, and break the center. Elias knew what the enemy expected. They expected humans to hesitate. He sent a message to every allied world. "This ends now," it said. "Stay safe, stay ready." The combined fleet did not look impressive. It was a mix of human ships, rebel vessels, and repurposed enemy hulls. Different designs, different tech levels, different crews. What they shared was purpose. They moved together toward the enemy capital, using jump paths the enemy no longer fully controlled. Resistance increased with every system, but it was scattered, uncoordinated. The closer they came, the less the enemy fought. "They're pulling back," an officer said, "letting us pass." Elias frowned. "They want us inside." The capital system was vast. A bright star sat at its center, surrounded by layers of artificial structures, habitats, command rings, and defense arrays built over centuries. It was not just a seat of power. It was a symbol. "This is where they decided who lived and who vanished," Mara said softly. Enemy fleets finally appeared in force, forming a defensive wall between the Allied fleet and the inner structures. Weapons charged. Space hummed with energy. A transmission cut through. The enemy spoke directly. "You have exceeded all predictions," the voice said. This conflict can end. Elias stepped forward. It already has. You just haven't accepted it. You will not survive a direct assault, the enemy replied. Withdraw. We will allow you to exist. Mara laughed quietly. They still think this is about permission. Elias raised his voice. You took our home. You erased our people. This ends when you stop deciding the future for others. Silence followed. Then the enemy fired. The battle was unlike anything before. Energy storms filled space. Ships vanished in flashes of light. Debris formed moving walls. Command signals were jammed, overridden, rewritten in real time. Human pilots adapted instantly, switching to local control when networks failed. Rebel ships slipped through gaps no one thought usable. Captured enemy vessels turned their weapons inward, guided by crews who knew their weaknesses. Losses were heavy. Elias watched ships wink out, names disappearing from the map. He felt each one, but he did not stop.
Forward, he ordered. Do not break formation.
Mara worked at the core console, fingers flying, interfacing with systems never meant for human minds. They're routing command through the central archive, she said. If we cut that, the fleets lose cohesion. And the civilians? Elias asked. They're not using this system for civilians anymore, Mara replied. They moved them away. This place is power and memory only. Elias nodded. Then we end it. A strike group pushed through the thickest fighting, aiming directly at the central structure. Enemy resistance tightened, desperate now, throwing everything into stopping them. One ship exploded close enough to rock the command deck. Shields failing, an officer shouted. Reroute, Elias said. Keep us moving. They reached the archive ring under constant fire. Boarding teams launched, including Elias and Mara. The interior was cold and vast, filled with towering data pillars that glowed with stored history. Entire civilizations were cataloged here. Judged. Approved or erased. This is where they chose Havenfall, Mara said. Enemy defenders engaged them in close quarters. Fighting was brutal, fast, and silent in places where gravity failed. Humans pushed forward, driven by something deeper than orders. They reached the core chamber. At its center floated a massive construct, layered with alien logic, pulsing with stored thought. Mara approached it carefully. This controls everything, she said. Fleets, records, cultural models. Can you shut it down? Elias asked. She shook her head.
Not cleanly. What happens if we destroy it? Mara hesitated.
But so does their history. Every world they touched loses records. Entire cultures vanish forever. Elias looked at the construct, then at the human soldiers around him. We don't erase people, he said. That's their way. Mara nodded slowly. I thought you'd say that. She began typing. Instead of destroying the core, she opened it. Data spilled outward, flooding networks across the system and beyond. Hidden truths, suppressed histories, proof of lies broadcast everywhere at once. Enemy fleets faltered. Crews saw the truth in real time. Worlds learned why neighbors vanished, why expansion was forbidden, why fear ruled everything. The enemy command tried to cut the feed. It was too late. Across the capital system, ships powered down. Weapons went silent. Some fled, others surrendered. The enemy voice returned, weaker now. You will fracture the galaxy, it said. No, Elias replied. We're giving it back. The final shots of the war were not fired in anger. They were fired to stop those who refused to stop fighting. When the battle ended, the capital still stood, but its power was gone. The enemy leadership surrendered, not to humans alone, but to the worlds they had crushed. Years passed. Havenfall was rebuilt, not as it was, but as something stronger. A shared world, protected by many species. Its sky was blue again. Elias stood on a hill overlooking the new city, watching ships come and go freely. Mara joined him, holding a data slate filled with plans for exploration, not conquest. They're calling it the Open Accord, she said. No expansion without consent. No erasure. Ever. Elias smiled faintly. About time. Humanity did not rule the stars. It guarded them, and across the galaxy a simple truth spread, carried in stories and quiet warnings. You can take our home, but we will always take the future.